presenting a series of lessons for us, an overarching theme, if you will, called The Calling. And he's broken it down for us into 4 quarters. We started the year with sacred listening. We've experienced sacred discernment. We're currently talking about sacred action, and we'll end the year with sacred embodiment. So this was certainly in the fore of my mind as I thought about what I wanted to speak today with all of you. The other thing that is really part of me all the time is, as I mentioned in my welcome, I've been in the unity movement for a moment or two. I was born into unity. My mom before me was born into unity, and her mom, my grandma, was around pretty close to the beginning of the unity movement. I think the thing I love most about unity is these foundational pieces. Now, I know we see the word Christianity up there, and for some people that can be a trigger word. For some people, there's some trauma that can be associated with Christianity. For me, being born in unity, very blessed. I was told from day one that I was a child of God and that God loved me. So for me, Christianity means Jesus, and he's just my bud. But I like focusing on that unity is a school. I love that, a school where we go to learn as opposed to being told how to practice truth. I like the practical nature of unity. Reverend Mike likes to talk about a spiritual tool belt we all have. I like to refer to unity as a 7-day-a-week approach to the teaching of truth. Unity is 24/7, 365, baby. Every minute, every day, unity. No getting away from it. So I held both of these in mind as I gave space for my lesson, and the thing that kept coming to the fore was a movie that I had seen 35 years ago called Field of Dreams. Now, in the movie Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner plays the character Ray Kinsella. Ray Kinsella is an Iowa corn farmer. He has a wife, he has a daughter, and by all intents and purposes, he's living his best life. But then he hears the voice. Now, I'm sorry, really quick. This is going to be kind of sketchy. It's not because of the AV, it's because of the clip that I gave. So it's not them, it's me. See, it's okay. Life should have background music. Good, you could have. I just could have had you do it. If you build it, it will come. So you know what that is, right? You know what that is? You know what you're watching right there? Well, I got to wait for him to switch, my bad. Everything flows beautifully, right? It's all in divine order. We're all just moving with it, growing, just flowing along, coming up. Here it comes. It's going to happen. I feel it. No, we don't need the movie clip again. No, it's all good. That's no worries. We're rocking. We're rolling. We're having fun. What we have is still no clicking. The listening. It's sacred listening. That's what it is. It's sacred listening. Now, it was a disembodied voice speaking to him, but his connection with divine, the voice, he will, if you build it, he will come. Sacred listening. So I want to spend a couple minutes with sacred listening. I want to offer some clarification, if you will, with sacred listening. So Ray in the movie hears the voice, has his sacred listening, his connection to divine through a disembodied voice. But it's a movie. It has to be dramatic, right? So do I believe that we all can have our connection to spirit, can experience sacred listening through a voice, an audible voice outside of ourselves? Absolutely, 100% yes. Charles has shared that there have been moments in his life that a voice has spoken to him, and it has provided guidance, it has provided solace, it has provided joy. Troy Scott has sat up here on the stage and shared with us his calling, and part of that calling was a voice that provided movement and motivation. So can connection with the divine be a disembodied voice? Absolutely. Do I think it's common? Do I think it's likely? No, I really don't. I think for 95% of us, our connection with spirit is something that happens through a feeling or through a thought, a feeling that resonates at an energetic level, not necessarily a thought. The challenge comes when somebody who doesn't necessarily have a lot of experience with truth. Reverend Mike the other day used the term spiritual maturity. So if there's somebody that does not have a lot of spiritual maturity for whatever reason, for lack of exposure or nothing else, and they hear somebody up here say, God will speak to you, and they hear somebody up here say, you will hear God through meditation, it's not necessarily a stretch for a person to think, well, if someone's speaking and someone's hearing, well, the connection has to be a voice, a real voice. Now, if you're a person that, or not, if you're out there, if you're a person that's meditating as much as you can, that's praying as much as you can, that's doing unity 24/7 as much as you can, and you feel that you don't or are not having a connection with spirit because you're not hearing a voice, I'm here to tell you, no, you're good. You're good, right? Trust your feeling. Trust your intuition. Myrtle Fillmore, the mother of the Unity movement, who put forth the idea, because I'm a child of God, I cannot inherit sickness. A foundational piece of the Unity movement, this idea that we can heal ourselves through the power of God within us. Foundational. And nowhere has anyone ever said, have we seen in any of the writings, that Myrtle put forth this inspiration because she heard a disembodied voice speaking to her. No, it was a feeling she had that became a knowing, that became a belief, that became an absolute manifestation as she healed herself from tuberculosis. So, sacred listening, it can be a voice. In fact, I would imagine in many ways it would be easier that way. But it's not necessarily a voice, and it's usually going to be more of a feeling. All right, point of clarification number 2. Where does Unity say that we best connect with spirit? What position can we put ourselves in? What practice can we do that opens the door to sacred listening? I'm going to be a little bit more specific. I heard people saying meditation. You're right on. Unity says we find that connection in the silence, and the best way to get to the silence is through silent meditation. All right, just a moment, sorry. But I want you to think back to the movie clip. I want you to think back about where Ray was when he heard the voice. I just showed you. He was in the corn. Now, nowhere in that clip, nowhere in this picture do I see Ray in lotus position aligning his chakras. I don't see him in the silence. I don't see any meditation at all. But what I do see in that clip, that his surroundings are calm. And I would venture to say that his mind was clear as he focused on one thing before the voice. He was focused on just the corn. And the clutter of other thoughts were outside his mind. So his mind was still. 1 Kings does not say to us that we connect with God through a silent, small voice. 1 Kings says we connect to God through a still, small voice. I have had some of my greatest inspirations, my most profound aha moments happen when I am mowing the lawn, shoveling the snow. Most recently on long drives from Chicago to Grand Rapids when there's no cars on the road. But if I'm thinking about the bills I have to pay while I'm shoveling the snow, or I'm mowing the lawn and I'm thinking about what I need to make for dinner, well then that's not stilling the mind. But if I'm shoveling the snow and my only focus is on how the snow disappears behind the shovel as I move it forward, or how as I mow the lawn I create parallel lines, my mind is free of the other clutter of thoughts. And my mind is still. And it's in that stillness that Spirit has a window to come through, that we can make connection to higher mind. We can experience sacred listening. So number 2, we don't need to be in the silence. We can connect to Spirit simply through stilling ourselves. Now, I don't want to be dismissive of yoga or chakras. My meditation had us reflecting on a chakra. I use chakras every day of my life. I use silent meditation every day of my life. But again, I ask you to reflect back to that meditation we had. And I asked you to go into the silence. I gave us only 30 seconds of being in the silence. I asked you to clear your mind, to think of nothing, nothing at all. And in that 30-second period, how many had their mind drift? How many had another thought pop in? Yeah, I'm here to tell you that is the nature of silent meditation. There is power in the silence. Charles himself says that all power comes from the silence. But the fact is that when we're in the silence, our mind is filled with thoughts. Not just when we're in the silence, always. Our mind is always working. Thoughts are always coming in. And if our goal during silent meditation is to have an extended period of time in the silence, to have complete silence for the extent of the meditation, we're only asking for frustration. And frustration is the antithesis of the purpose of the meditation. If we can get just a moment, 2 or 3 minutes in a 15 to 20 minute meditation, that's phenomenal. Hey, it could be just 1 or 2 seconds of real silence, but that's fine. Because in truth, there is no time. Time is just an illusion. All we have is here and now. And in the now, a moment of time is infinite. So if we can just allow ourselves a moment of time to allow Spirit to connect. When a thought comes into our mind during a silent meditation, where the goal is to stay blank, to stay still. When a thought comes in, don't be frustrated. Recognize it. Thank it for being there. Release it and let it go. And return back to the silence. Return back to clarity. Inevitably, another thought's going to pop in. Cool. Thank you. I let you go. And come back to blankness, to emptiness. Allow those few moments to come through a silent meditation, not continuous silence, not frustration, a few moments to connect with Spirit, to allow Spirit to come through. We might not notice the effects of that in our moment right then there in the meditation. In fact, it's likely we will not. It's as it manifests in our everyday life because we've given ourselves an opportunity to have Spirit come through. We've given ourselves a few moments of time to allow Spirit to express through us. So again, sacred listening, the silence is not an end goal. Silence is a process and a practice in which we look for moments of silence. All right, enough clarity. Enough trying to give some thoughts on sacred listening. So Ray hears the voice. He's disconcerted by it for sure, frustrated, but he doesn't reject it. And eventually, he comes to realize that if you build it, he will come means that if he builds a baseball field in the middle of his corn, the baseball player, Shoeless Joe Jackson, will come back and be able to play baseball. What? What? Quick history lesson. Shoeless Joe Jackson was a baseball player in the early 1900s. He was one of the best ball players that ever played. In 1919, in the World Series, 7 of his teammates and himself took money from gamblers to lose games on purpose. The scandal nearly ended baseball, and the players, as a punishment, received a lifetime ban. Shoeless Joe was never able to play baseball again. All right, so maybe there's a connection there between Ray building a baseball field and this guy that was banned from baseball having this opportunity to come back. But time out. Spirit is telling Ray to plow under his corn, the means by which he pays the mortgage to put a roof over the head of his family. Spirit is saying to plow under your corn, the means by which he uses to put food on the table for his wife and child, in the hopes that a dead guy will come back to life? Really? Are you crazy? Really? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the world of sacred discernment. This wrestling match that we have between inspiration and ego. A disembodied voice saying, here's direction. And the ego saying, really? Are you crazy? What do we do? What do we do? Well, I put forward to you today the fact that perhaps, the steps in the calling are not necessarily linear. Listening, discernment, action, and embodiment might not have to happen in that order. And maybe, just maybe, if we put a little bit of action before sacred discernment, maybe that'll help us with this wrestling match, help us discern. Well, how do we do that? Oh, I'm sorry. It would look something like sacred listening. We do a little baby step, not a big action, just a baby step. Discernment is much easier then. Once we discern, we can have action. Action leads to embodiment. But what do we mean by this baby step? I started teaching in Walled Lake, Michigan, east side of the state, out by Milford. It was a wonderful gig. It was fantastic. But I couldn't shake the feeling inside myself that I was meant to do something more. And the thoughts started coming through that I should experience, I should try, I should embody an urban teaching experience. Psst, by the way, sacred listening. Something's telling me, I'm feeling it. So I experienced sacred listening. But then ego. So I started thinking about Detroit, and that didn't resonate. So I thought about Chicago, and that was, that's interesting. That feels, But then ego started coming in. And it was like, really? The inner city? That's dangerous. It meant leaving my friends and family. And back then, I had a strong core group of friends. 2 of them are here today. Mark and Jean Boston are here today to support me from way back then. Reverend Mike was part of that group. We would get together 4 nights a week and meditate or do some sort of spiritual activity. It meant leaving my mom and dad. Not just leaving for a little while, but like pulling up roots, like leaving, like going somewhere else to establish the rest of your life. That's scary. So here I am having inspiration. on a direction of my life. And I have ego speaking to me as well about, are you sure? Are you afraid? It's afraid, it's scary. So what did I do? I took a little action. I spoke my truth. Now, lots of times we don't think of speaking in terms of action. When we think of action, we think of actual physical movement. But what speaking does for us, it allows us to slow the vibration of thought to sound. Thought is at a high vibration. Sound is still at a high vibration, but a lower vibration. It allows us to jump around. We start with inspiration, which is at a very, very high inspiration or vibration. We lower it through sacred listening when we do meditation, and it lowers it down to thought. The vibration further is lower when we can speak our truth, because now the vibration is sound, and the goal is to eventually bring that inspiration down to the physical world, down to manifestation. So I spoke my truth to my friends and family, and their enthusiasm, their joy made sacred discernment easy, and I moved into sacred action. I moved to Chicago. Now, in the movie, Ray also speaks his truth. He talks to his wife, and it's a beautiful moment where he's very vulnerable and talking about how his life seems to be slipping away from him, and this might be the last moment to really do something about it. And he asked, do you think I'm crazy? And she goes, yep. Yep. But I also think that if you feel strong enough to do something, you should do it. To have somebody in our life like that allows us to be vulnerable and supports us in our dreams. And it doesn't have to be a wife. It's nice if it is. It doesn't have to be a wife. It can be a friend. It can be family members. But he moves forward. Now, after taking action, he plows down his field. It goes. And when we're taking sacred action, we have to trust. This is from Reverend Mike. This is his lesson on sacred action. We have to trust, and he said, be relaxed. I'm going to throw in there, we have to be patient. For Ray Kinsella, he builds his baseball field, and spring flows into summer, flows into fall, flows into winter, and the following spring, and still no shoeless Joe Jackson. For me, moving to Chicago, there was no teaching job just waiting for me. I had to get my certification. I had to find a job. So I had to work odd jobs to put food on the table and pay the rent. I worked for a while doing door-to-door sales in all sorts of inclement weather. I worked on an assembly line for a pharmaceutical company. Had to wear a clean suit, very low pay. And it's at times when we're waiting like this, when we're being patient, and struggle is part of that it's easy for the ego to come back in again. I mentioned before that the steps with sacred action might not be linear. It is also true that just because we obtain or ascertain one of the steps doesn't mean that step might not come back again. And if ego comes back into the picture again, certainly sacred discernment is going to come back again. But when we are in this time of struggle, it doesn't always happen, but it can happen, where we will have a crucible moment. A moment in time where we're faced with sacred discernment again, and we need to take one more stand for our calling, one more stand for our inspiration. For me, that manifested with the pharmaceutical company offering me a promotion. I would go from working the assembly line to being the person in charge of mixing the chemicals, regulating the chemicals and medicines that went into the syringes. A massive step in responsibility and purpose. A massive step in pay and benefits. Seemingly a wonderful gift that has been brought to me, but it wasn't my calling. I remember feeling to myself, I did not work all those years to get my degree, my certificate, and become a teacher. I did not uproot myself from Michigan and move to Chicago to work for a pharmaceutical company in Chicago. Nothing wrong with pharmaceutical companies. Absolutely necessary. It wasn't my calling. I could remember distinctly feeling my dream slipping from me, that my inspiration was sliding away. So instead of taking that promotion, I quit the job completely. Talk about trust. But it's at these crucible moments when you hold firm and you let Spirit know you believe and you trust that things start to fall in line and the dominoes start to fall. The next day, the phone rang. It was a friend of mine who had been working with a child with cerebral palsy. The parents of that child wanted a teacher to work with their child as an aide in the school that the child was going to. I took that job. I got my foot in the door of Chicago Public Schools. At that school, there was a music teacher whose husband was a principal at another Chicago public school. I went to her and asked, can I use your name on a cover letter to send my resume to your husband? She's like, sure. So I sent the letter with the cover letter. I don't think that principal even looked at my resume. I think he saw his wife's name on the cover letter and called me in, and he gave me or offered me the job on the spot. And I was there for 33 years. 33 years of being able to have students that didn't believe in themselves, to walk in and find the ability to look inside themselves for something they didn't know what was there and bring it forth. For them to be able to believe and be more than what they thought they could be. 33 years, what a blessing. All of you have a field of dreams. Your life is a field of dreams. And I got news for you. If you have a dream, you've experienced sacred listening. Spirit has spoken to you and said, this can be your calling. This can be your path. I wish for all of you to think about the fact that the voice doesn't need to be a voice. It can be a feeling, and trust that feeling. Allow stillness to bring Spirit through. And remember that silent meditation, which is a very good process to get to stillness, is just that, a process, not an end goal. Remember that sacred discernment is going to be tough. It doesn't have to be linear, and maybe a little bit of action can help. And when we're in sacred action, be ready for that crucible moment and hold tough, hold strong in Spirit. I thank all of you so much for being here today.
Hey, it's Reverend Mike here. I just wanted to stop for a moment before you get on with your day, and thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. It means the world to us, and I just wanted to let you know if there's anything that we can do to make your experience even better, please do not hesitate to reach out by going to our website. I also wanted to offer you the opportunity for us to get together and sit down so I could get to know you a little bit better and answer any questions that you have. I can either do that by either getting together in person, have a cup of coffee, or we can meet online via Zoom. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at michael@courage2thrive.com. And lastly, if you find these messages are helping you, we would be tremendously grateful if you'd consider donating to the center. The best and the easiest way to do that is simple. Just go to our website. Again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye now.